So, this was my first 10K set uploaded. Only 3 months after playing 10K, I guess I started mapping. As you can see, it was never completed, and the difficulty spread doesn't quite make sense. But after a few more months of mapping and playing, I feel like I have enough experience with 10K to really clean this set up. The top difficulty is the most complete, so I'll start with that one. Whenever you're remapping or fixing a large amount of a map, you can create a new empty difficulty and open the old one as a reference. This way you can copy over any bits of the map that you want to keep while having empty space to create new patterns. So I want to start with this first section. It looks like I was mapping in sort of a 5+5 style, but it kind of stops around 29 seconds. I'm not sure what the deal is with that. Then there's also the symmetrical pattern here for the piano noise, which I really like, but it sort of stops before the idea fully develops. Once we get to 36 seconds, the LN section starts. I think I want to keep this left-hand, right-hand thing going all the way until it gets to the piano part, and then fully develop that symmetry pattern I had going on. For the 2-note jumps, I want to specifically avoid using pinch chords just to make it a bit more challenging, but also neater. I love this part right here. Maybe LNs don't quite reflect this sort of breaking noise, but it's pretty to look at. For this last repetition, I wanted to go with something a little bit different, while still maintaining the same motif that I have going on here. In the old diff, you can see what I mean by that, but it's a little bit messy. Patterns like this look really nice to me because it's a way to divide up all 10 columns by 4, while still having everything feel even and symmetrical. This part looks a bit awkward on the old diff. I can see why I did this, but I really want to have this looking symmetrical as possible. This quad here might be a little unnecessary, so maybe I could go with 2 3-note chords instead. The only part I don't like is this, as it doesn't lead into the symmetry quite well. This 3-note chord might also be kinda awkward to hit. Honestly, this is the best I can think of. Now I can go back and fill in the notes for the opposite hands. I really didn't know what type of chord to enter with here, so I'll just do this for now. I love how these notes are descending right here, completely unintentional. Maybe I can lead into this pattern like that. I don't know what was going on here. There's like no clear structure. Yeah, I guess this works better. Yeah, it's good enough. I'll mirror this part here though, just so it leads in better. Want to avoid this jack. It makes this part look so much better in my opinion. This pattern looks a bit messy visually, but I think it flows nicely on the fingers. Now onto the LN section. And honestly, a lot of my ideas here look good, so most of the stuff will remain the same. I'll edit this part quickly and maybe add anything in that sticks out. This sound is very consistent, so there's no need to have a 3-note chord here. I'm hoping that these staircase patterns with the chords aren't too demanding to hit, especially with the pinkies being held down. It makes a little sense to extend this LN here. The way the jumps here are divided like that looks very nice. Having these chords start from the edge might look a little bit better. Having the stream include the pinky makes it more difficult, and I think that's needed with how much these chords will inflate the star rating. I'm going to split up some of these chords and also add more LN to really make this difficult as some of the other ranked 4-star maps. Even something like this looks a bit silly and too easy. This part is a little weird. Making this one 5 because the impact sound is a little louder. A lot of these patterns look really good already. Now this part of the map is definitely the difficulty spike. While I want to make sure it's hittable, I gotta add a bit more variation to the chords to make it more accurately reflect the star rating. I'm thinking 3-note chords split like this, but also spread between the 2 hands, give it enough complexity, and also keeps it on the easier side. And I can switch between the 2 like so. I hope that makes it better. This part is fairly tame, so I'm going to quickly map through it. This part's kinda nuts. For now, I'm going to omit this note, so it's putting more emphasis on the LN pattern. Yeah, going all the way to the edge here doesn't really make sense. I'll fix this at some point. A lot of people have complained about the jacks I use in some of my 3 to 4-star maps, so I think I'll just go with the stream pattern for this. This is somewhat of an offset symmetrical pattern or whatever. I use this a lot in some of my previous maps. With the left hand, that's pretty much fine, but with the right hand, maybe we could move the starting pattern over to the left by 1, so that each chord has consistent spacing between them. And then right here, as the piano kind of comes in, I could maybe do something like this. Pretty much anything to better reflect what's going on in the song. That looks a lot better. I kind of want to do a jack pattern here. Seems like this pattern loops. Having this single note in the middle here maintains the symmetry. Having this note on the pinky seems like the only spot I could have it. Anyway, outside of the beginning, I think that's everything. For both difficulties, I mapped the beginning section relatively similar. It's simple LN, so there's not much to say about it. Moving on to the hard diff. I remapped most of this off camera, so I'll just be highlighting a few changes I made. With this first pattern, I just made the chords a bit wider, so that it'll include every column. Like the previous diff, I kept the same 5+5 structure and removed pinch chords from the first 2 repetitions. I made this part more symmetrical. When you hit the middle finger on both hands, you can use that as an opportunity to switch symmetry styles. For this part, I avoided using the ring finger here, just to make this pattern a little bit easier. I made this part mirror itself and added some variation to the burrs. In this whole section, I focused on really spreading out the pattern so that each finger gets used more, and tried to avoid mapping just with the inner fingers. You can really notice the difference between the old, more linear patterns. It kinda messed up the symmetry with the chords leading into the stream here, but it honestly makes this whole section a lot better visually. While this new pattern looks more fitting for 10K, it's honestly very awkward to hit, so this is something that'll be changed in the future. The old pattern looks like something I would use in a 4K map. I'm okay with using jump troll patterns if it's limited to about 1 or 2 beats. Plus it helps balance out the star rating. There was nothing wrong with this old pattern, it's just that if I start on the left hand, it can be balanced by going on the right hand, and then down the middle. For each chord in this Ellen section, I tried using the same chord size for consistency. There's also the staircase pattern that pops up which follows the piano. There wasn't much sense here, having this chord in the middle like that, so I just made this whole part symmetrical, which leads nicely into this pattern that starts in the middle, basically avoiding any unnecessary jacks. This part here might have to be adjusted, as having the Ellens in here creates sort of a bracket motion that's quite difficult for a 3-star. There's a lot of weird pattern inconsistencies throughout the section that I have adjusted, as well as column balancing. I'm fine with having a jack here because it follows the music in a way. It's subtle, but having the pattern spread out like this does a better job of using many columns, which also leads into the next set of patterns better, and keeping the same idea here from the original diff, while also improving the structure. For the last 2 difficulties, I could probably make another video going over some more general mapping tips for mapping low star 10K, or even just have someone do a guest difficulty. But either way, I hope this video was informative and that you learned something about 10K mapping. Here's the finished map side by side.